So now it's time to talk about our area of a triangle. We've talked a little bit about how to find the area of a rectangle, and we talked a little bit about how to find the area of a parallelogram. Now it's time to find the area of a triangle. So let's start out with a nice right triangle. Okay, so here's our triangle, and we need to remember from our last video that our area of a rectangle is going to equal base times height. And we also remember that base times height can be used to find the area of a parallelogram as well, because we just have to kind of shift some pieces of that parallelogram around to get back to our home base of this rectangle here. But for a triangle, it's going to be a little bit different. So if we look at our triangle, we need to, again, think about how are we going to get back to our home base. And home base is always going to be that rectangle, because we know how to find a rectangle. So we're going to think, what can I do to change this triangle to make it into a rectangle? Well, if we look, we can see that if we take this triangle and we made an exact copy of it, and then we kind of flipped that copy around, we could make another half up here of a rectangle. So you see that when you put it all together, you've got your original triangle, and then you have this invisible triangle here, as if we were having two. That'll make your rectangle. That'll make your home base. Okay, so cool. We found how to make this triangle into a rectangle. Now we need to look a little bit at how we're going to figure this. So let's make a little rectangle over here to talk about too. We know that over here, we're going to call this our base. Remember, your base can be any one of these sides. We're just choosing this to be our base for right now. And we can see that this is our line here that is perpendicular to our base. So we're going to call this our height. Okay. And we can put in some values for our base and our height. So let's say that our base is 2. Let's say that our height is 3. So that means that our base over here is also going to be 2, because we're just transferring it from over here. And our height over here is also going to be 3, because we're just transferring that height over there. Okay, well, if we know to find the area of our rectangle, we use base times height. So we'd go 2 times 3 is going to give us 6. So that's going to be our area of our rectangle. The area of this rectangle is 6. Now we know that to get this rectangle, we had to double our amount of triangles. So now we've got to rework that, and we've got to think, well, I need to find what half of this rectangle is, because half of this rectangle is what's going to give me my triangle, which I'm trying to find the area of. So if we take our original equation here, our base times height, and we divide it by 2, another way to say that we divide by 2 is we can multiply by 1/2. So we'll say 1/2 times our base times our height is going to give us our area of a triangle. So let's try it out just to make sure it works. So we've got 1/2 times our base, which is 2, times our height, which is 3. 2 times 3 is 6. Multiply that by 1/2, which is really just dividing by 2, remember. It's going to give us 3. So we can see that 3 is the area of this triangle here, and that 3 plus 3 is going to give us 6. It checks out. Now we want to look at a special part here, just to make sure if your triangle is not always going to be right. Say you have a triangle like this. You can still mirror this triangle, and instead of giving you a nice rectangle, though, it's going to give you a parallelogram. Okay, so we can kind of see how this makes a parallelogram. But remember, we know how to figure out parallelograms. So you just kind of have to take another step. You'll turn this parallelogram into a rectangle, and you can find your base, or excuse me, you can find your area that way. So just know that every time you have a triangle, you can flip it around to see that it's going to make either a rectangle or a parallelogram. You can get back to that home base of base times height, and you can know that your area of a triangle is always going to equal 1/2 base times height.